It feels really good to be looking ahead to the year before us, and to start us off I have 25 new releases coming out this year that I'm really looking forward to. Before we get into them, I just want to caveat this with saying that I've sourced these new releases from a number of places, so predominantly from newsletters that I receive from bookshops and publishers, but also from social media, so over on Instagram, but also right here on BookTube. Some of those sources are not UK based, and some of you are not UK based, so I've no idea where and when these books will be available universally, but hopefully this provides a jumping off point for you to discover some new books to you. So we're going to go in chronological order, so starting with the newest release, which is actually already out. This came out on the 7th of January, and that is The Heart of Winter by Jonathan Evison. This is about a married couple, Abe and Ruth. They have been married for 70 years, and you know I love me an older protagonist. They were an unlikely couple that met in college, and now after 70 years of marriage they live on a farm with their Labrador Meg. You see why this appealed. And Ruth has what she thinks is an innocent toothache, and it turns out to be something much more malicious. Abe is required to do lots of caring for Ruth, and his 3 children don't believe that he can do that, and it sounds like the book is a reflection on the ups and downs of their marriage and how they're coping in their later years together. It's described as a big-hearted and profound portrait of marriage, which sounds lovely, and I'm really looking forward to giving this a try. Good Girl by Aria Aber is out on the 14th of January. Kava Akbar says it's a no bullshit must read debut. So that sounds pretty great recommendation to me, but if you did need to know more, here's what it's about. I'm going to read the blurb for this one. In Berlin's artistic underground, where techno and drugs fill warehouses still pockmarked from the wars of the 20th century, 19-year-old Neela at last finds her tribe. Born in Germany to Afghan parents, raised in public housing graffitied with swastikas, drawn to philosophy, photography and sex, Neela has spent her adolescence disappointing her family while searching for her voice as a young woman and artist. And on it goes. It sounds absolutely banging. Out on the 16th of January is a new Southern Gothic from Grady Hendrix, and that's Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. This one is set in 1970s Florida, where a girl who finds herself pregnant is sent to this house where people having babies out of wedlock and in disrepute are sent for their final 3 months of pregnancy. One day a travelling library passes by, and the librarian presses a book of witchcraft into Neva's hands, and so that is the source of this story. I've seen people read advanced copies of this and give it really banging reviews, and I really enjoy Grady Hendrix books, so looking forward to this one. Out on the 30th of January is a new book from Emma Healey. I really enjoyed Elizabeth is Missing by Emma Healey, so I'm really interested in this new release from her. It's called Sweat, and it's about a woman who has managed to leave an abusively coercive relationship, and she bumps into him in the gym sometime after they've split, and it's about her kind of fighting back for that balance of power. I think there's like a physical element, I'm assuming, given the title and the fact that they bump into each other in the gym. So yeah, it sounds intriguing, let's say. Sirens by Emilia Hart is out on the 13th of February. Emilia Hart wrote Weyward, which was a witchy book, which I really enjoyed, and it was pretty popular. This one is about sirens and mermaids. Sign me up. The Wardrobe Department by Elaine Garvey is out on the 13th of February. Set in noughties London, our main character is originally from Ireland but now works in the West End in a wardrobe department for a theatre. The blurb talks about her being torn between her sense of self and identity and feeling that link to her heritage in rural Ireland, but also wanting to make something of herself in this wardrobe department in London. It sounds really beautiful. Also out on the 13th of Feb is Victorian Psycho by Virginia Feito. Virginia Feito wrote Mrs. March, which I really enjoyed, so although this sounds a bit more horror than perhaps I would normally lean towards, I'd love to read something else from her. Winifred arrives at a new house to be the governess there, and she tries really hard to keep her grotesque and wicked compulsions under wraps, but fails. This is described as a gruesome and gleeful new novel that probes the psyche of a bloodthirsty governess in Victorian England, and Catriona Ward says it's simmering with rage, propulsive and laugh out loud funny. Fundamentality by Nussaibah Younis is out on the 25th of Feb. Let me read the blurb to you. When academic Nadia is disowned by her puritanical mother and dumped by her lover, she decides to make a getaway, accepting a UN job in Iraq. Tasked with rehabilitating ISIS women, Nadia becomes mired in the opaque world of international aid, surrounded by bumbling colleagues. But then Nadia meets Sarah, a precocious and sweary East Londoner who joined ISIS at just 15, and she is struck by how similar their stories are, both from a Muslim background, both feisty and opinionated, with a shared love of dairy milk and rude pickup lines. Sarah and Nadia immediately connect, and a powerful friendship forms. When Sarah confesses a secret, Nadia is forced to make a difficult choice. It sounds absolutely super. I'm really leaning into humour, it looks like, this year, so that's exciting. Notes on Surviving the Fire by Christine Murphy is out on the 25th of February. Sarah grew up in Maine hunting with her father, where they killed every animal with a sense of reverence. Now she's a PhD student and she spends most of her time worrying about getting a permanent academic position, taking ketamine and hanging out with her friend Nathan watching 80s films. Nathan was the only person to believe her when she was assaulted in their first year of studies. So when he dies mysteriously of a drug overdose, she doesn't buy it and investigates his death herself. She discovers a pattern of deaths of young men on campus and now has to confront a very different type of killing and decide if it can be justified. Cloudless by Rupert Dastur is out on the 27th of February, and I'm going to read you the blurb for this one. It is autumn 2004, and in a farmhouse on the hills outside Llandudno, a family endures the agonising wait for their son to return home from Iraq. His decision to join up has left them reeling, yet there are other pressing concerns to be met at home: the working of the farmland that has been theirs for generations, and what to do with their troubled younger son. Catherine's childhood sweetheart comes back to their small town, giving the boy's doting mother a glimpse into the life she could have had, and John, their father, falls once more into his gambling habit, even as the farm sits on the brink of bankruptcy. As each member of the family grasps at their own tenuous lifeline, they drift further from one another until on a cold winter evening there is a fateful knock at the door. Written in luminous, exquisitely calibrated prose, Cloudless is a masterful portrayal of the fragility and resilience of human connection. Out on the 6th of March is Hunchback by saou Ichikawa. Born with a congenital muscle disorder, our main character lives with a severe spine curvature, which means that she uses an electric wheelchair and a ventilator and lives at home with the support of carers. She lives her life online and has an online community. She tweets, she engages with social media, she studies, but she also writes outrageous erotica on her website. One day, a new male carer arrives and discloses that he's read it all. It's described as uproariously funny, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. Universality by Natasha Brown is out on the 13th of March, and I have just booked myself my first book event of 2025. I'm going to see her speak in Bristol. Late one night, in the middle of an illegal rave on a Yorkshire farm, a young man is almost bludgeoned to death with a gold bar. An ambitious young journalist sets about solving the mystery of what happened to this young man and writes an exposé. This is described as voyeuristic, and I remember feeling the same way about Natasha Brown's Assembly. That felt like a very voyeuristic writing style, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing how that's applied to something with much higher stakes. Also out on the 13th of March is A Room Above a Shop by Anthony Shapland. Two men form a tentative connection. One inherits a shop and the other needs somewhere to work and be a tenant, and so quietly they work together and develop this life that they never imagined possible. This is set in South Wales and it's set against the backdrop of Section 28, of an age of consent debate and the HIV and AIDS crisis. It's described as a tender and resident love story. Out on the 18th of March is Oh Sinners by Nicole Cuffy. I read Nicole's debut last year, Dances, and thoroughly enjoyed it. This is about a young journalist who goes to investigate a cult and gets sucked in. Let me tell you what the blurb says. Farouk Zaidi, a young journalist processing the recent death of his father, a devout Muslim, takes the opportunity to embed himself in a cult called The Nameless. Based in the California Redwoods and shepherded by an enigmatic Vietnam War veteran named Odo, The Nameless adhere to the 18 utterances, including teachings such as all suffering is distortion and see only beauty. Farouk, sceptical but committed to unravelling the mystery of the Nameless, extends his stay over months as he gets deeper into the cult's inner workings and alluring teachings. But as he gets closer to Odo, Farouk himself begins to unravel, forced to come to terms with the memories he has been running from while trying to resist Odo's spell. From what I enjoyed in Dances, I can see Nicole Cuffy's writing style really working with a plot like this. Goddess Complex by Sanjena Sathian is out on the 20th of March. Our main character, Sanjena, has left her husband. They lived on a commune together in India. She's currently staying with her sister and trying to pick up her studies again and pick up the threads of her abandoned dissertation and figure out life, etc. She's trying to finalise her divorce. Meanwhile, her ex-husband Killian goes missing. Here's what it says. As Sanjena tries to track him down, she's bombarded with unnerving calls from women seeking her advice on pregnancy and fertility. Soon Sanjena comes face to face with what her life might have been if she'd chosen parenthood. And the road not taken turns out to be wilder, stranger and more tempting than she imagined. It's described as a darkly funny, vertiginous novel about the dilemmas of procreation, pregnancy and parenting. It's a twist-filled psychological thriller and a feminist satire of our age of girl bosses turned self-care influencers. That sounds right up my street. Next up, out on the 25th of March, is Trauma Plot by Jamie Hood. This one is not going to be for everybody. I am going to read the Penguin description for this because otherwise I'm not going to do it justice. In Trauma Plot, Hood draws on disparate literary forms to tell the story that lurked in Good Girl's margins, so Good Girl was her first book, of 3 decades marred by sexual violence and the wreckage left behind. With her trademark critical remove, Hood interrogates the archetype of the rape survivor, who must perform penitence long after living through the unthinkable, invoking some of art's most infamous women to have played the role. Ovid's Philomena, David Lynch's Laura Palmer, and Artemisia Gentileschi, who captured Judith's wrath. In so doing, she asks, what do we as a culture demand of survivors? And what do survivors in turn owe a world that has abandoned them? Trauma Plot is a scolding work of personal and literary criticism. It is a send-up of our culture's pious disdain for trauma porn, a dirge for the broken promises of #MeToo, and a paean to finding life after death. So it sounds fiercely confronting, but I'm really interested to read it. Out on the 3rd of April is Harriet Tubman live in concert, a novel by Bob the Drag Queen. I know! In an age of miracles, our greatest heroes from history have returned magically and unexplainedly to shake us out of our hate and confusion as a culture in this particular moment in time. And Harriet Tubman is back and she has a lot to say. Harriet Tubman and 4 of the enslaved people she led to freedom want to tell their story and so go about creating a hip-hop album in which to do it. This sounds like a lot of fun, but also like it has a lot of really important stuff to say, so I'm really excited about it. I Cheerfully Refuse by Leif Enger is out on the 3rd of April. Set in a slightly futuristic America, Our main character, a bereaved musician, sets sail on a sentient lake looking for his beloved book-selling but dead wife. This sounds totally bonkers, but it's the kind of bonkers that I can really get on board with. Out on the 12th of April is Your Love Is Not Good by Joanna Hedver. At an LA party, a queer American-Korean artist or aspiring painter spots a woman she soon becomes obsessed with. She quickly becomes her muse and the subject of her paintings, which soon gain interest. But on the verge of a long sought-after breakthrough, a petition is started by a black performance artist to boycott museums and art galleries for their imperialist and racist practices. Torn between warring ambitions, activist and painter, the main character has to decide between supporting the cause and her own success. Listen to what the Waterstones notes say about this. Your Love Is Not Good stuffs queer explosive into the cracks between identity and aspiration, between desire and art, and revels in the raining debris. That sounds so good. Sister Europe by Nell Zink is out on the 24th of April. Check this out. As a Berlin night draws in around the pristine glass exterior of the Hotel Interconti, a ragtag group of friends, family and potential lovers find themselves frustrated. By promise or threat, they have all gathered at a lavish celebration of an elderly author's venerable career. But dinner is delayed, the speeches are a drag, and the gang, a young trans teen and her father, an ageing publisher and his flaky date, a dog, a troubled heiress and an Arab prince, begin to feel the pinch of boredom, hunger and horniness. Together they will make their bid for freedom and will soon embark on an exhilarating odyssey through the city's shadow and light. It's sophisticated, sexy and exquisitely funny. Sister Europe is the remarkable new novel from one of the most singular, brilliant writers working today. A vivid tale of growing up, growing old and getting down. How good does that sound? Amazing. Whoever wrote that, like, fair play. A new novel by Anna Hope comes out on the 1st of May and that's called Albion. Anna Hope wrote Expectation, which was a really big hit. I remember when it came out, I didn't love it, but I really enjoyed her writing, so would be really keen to try something else from her. A family are gathering at their sort of mansion house family home for a funeral. Everyone thinks that they're set to inherit the family estate and they've all made very different plans with what they're going to do with it. One wants to rewild the estate, another wants to create an outrageously expensive glamping treetop experience for the lavishly rich, and each believe they have their father's blessing. Needless to say, chaos ensues. Sounds marvellous. Out on the 1st of May from Alice Vincent is Hark! How Women Listen. Now, I have a confession to make because I have Why Women Grow by Alice Vincent sat on my shelf and still haven't read it, but this sounds really, really marvellous. I mean, I love the sound of Why Women Grow too. I went to a book event and saw Alice speak and she was marvellous, but this seems even more up my street. So we're told that women are really good at listening, but Alice has decided to kind of like really go in and scrutinise that and ask why, what's that all about? So she interrogates our relationship with sound, from music to phantom heartbeats to birdsong. She covers it all. It sounds really, really beautiful. Land of Hope by Kate Baum is out on the 16th of May. This is described as a pitch black, magnetic and unforgettable meditation on nature, of love, evil and the power of redemption. This is how the book is described. Daughter, mother, glory, wife of the devil of the moor, Hope Gleason has many names. The child of a shepherd raised in the remote moors of northern England, Hope has always understood the satanic brutality of the land. But when an ear-splitting, unknowable sound destroys the nearby village, Hope must embark on a dangerous journey to survive through the ravaged land with a lad, newly orphaned and alone, under her wing. As they trek the wilds together to find her husband, her violent past chases her at every turn, and long-buried memories begin to surface. Oh, sounds very exciting. Frederick Backman has a new book coming out on the 19th of June, which will be just in time for my birthday, and it's called My Friends. 18-year-old Louisa has inherited a painting, and in it it's a depiction of the sea, but very small in this painting are 3 people sat at the end of a pier. She decides to go about trying to find out more about the painting, and in doing so discovers the secrets between these 3 friends. I don't need to know the details of the plot. It sort of doesn't matter, because if Frederick Backman has written it, I will love it, despite the fact that it will be an experience like having your heart cut out with a spoon. The emotional trauma with him is real, but also exquisite. So I will really look forward to that coming round. Carol Lewis has a new novel coming out also on the 19th of June, and that's called Bitter Honey. Carol Lewis wrote Adrift, which was absolutely stunning. Hannah is preparing for her husband's funeral after 50 years of marriage. He was a writer and a beekeeper who came to understand and interpret the world through the language of bees. Before he died, he wrote and left her 11 letters, the exact number of frames that make up a beehive. And each letter is an examination of an aspect of their marriage. But as the letters unfold, they reveal a devastating secret. Knowing Carol Lewis's writing, I know that we will be in very careful, gentle and tender hands in what sounds like a very emotionally demanding book. And that's it. 25 new releases for you to get excited about in 2025. Let me know if any of these are on your radar or not, if I've piqued your interest with any of them. Please let me know in the comments, and I will look forward to seeing you again in the next video.